TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
Hey, gang, good afternoon. Welcome to In the Batter's Box. My name is Scott Webb, and welcome in. And Jay Barry's got a note up here. It says, Sunday, Scott's on fire with his breakdowns and picks. Hey, thank you, Jay. Come back from the break. I think Friday we gave out 4 plays. Yeah, because I remember talking about it yesterday that when you roll a strike, in bowling, you want to maximize that opportunity, and you want to roll another strike, or at least get a spare, or whatever. Make those pins add up, and we were able to do that. So Friday, I think we had 4 winners on Friday, and then it was I don't want to say crazy. It was tough yesterday, looking at the numbers and the board and what you're trying to. How to navigate the games and where to go. And we ended up, I think, on 2 plays yesterday. And where's my notes? These notes from yesterday or the day before. Here they are. We ended up on Detroit yesterday, and they were underdog winners. And we also ended up on I think it was Baltimore, Cease in the first 5 innings yesterday, and he was a winner. And I hinted around on the show. I didn't come right out and say it, but I was also on Baltimore yesterday, and they were winners. So kind of came out okay. Passed up a couple opportunities. I didn't play. One of my notes says I was going to play on Atlanta and Morton in the first game, and of course that game went extra innings. It won, but that's probably why I didn't play it. I didn't feel that strong about it. So as you're doing these things and you go through this stuff, it's really good to get in the habit of how did I win? Because ultimately what you're trying to do is do it again. Right. So you want to replicate your success. And I think, that's one of the things I talk about sometimes. And one of the things I think as a person who's trying to learn and or just get plays from somebody, what you need to do is make sure that person that you're trusting and or yourself, you need to be able to replicate your process to produce more results. If you're not replicating the process to produce more results, then you don't have a process. And I don't mean that in a mean way or a bad way. I just mean that somehow you won one day, but you can't replicate the same process by using whatever it was that you did. So you have to kind of have a sort of an idea of what you're really doing. I know there's some guys out here, and some, and especially happens in football, where they go and say, well, I have a feeling about these games. I just feel how they play, and then I go bet my feelings. Okay, well, I mean, you can bet however you want. But I can tell you that you can't replicate your feelings every day, and you can't replicate how you feel about games and situations and stuff every day. So it's much better when you're in a spot where you can use factual information, have firsthand, not secondhand, thirdhand, but firsthand data, so that you understand what you're looking at, and make sound decisions in a process-oriented way that produces result after result after result. And if you lose, you can change your process so that you can try to start winning or make adjustments, right? That's kind of how it goes. Sometimes you'll get off on some of these big streaks and you'll you'll go 20-10, and then all of a sudden you can't win. You just can't win. So then you have to start trying other things and do other stuff and look at other things, right? So baseball provides a lot of opportunity for that. A lot of my shows are going to be, whether we do the run line or we do the money line or whatever. The next thing we look at is probably totals or team totals. You can look at props and strikeouts and home runs. And you can bet these things in first fives and all kinds of stuff. So you can do all kinds of things to make the narrative of your theory fit a bet. So that's what I like. I like about baseball is you can do a lot of stuff. Obviously, football, you can bet first quarters, halves, totals, sides, whatever you want to, props. So getting into one thing about today, I published a list and put it out on Twitter, and it's on my website, about starting pitchers. And the reason I put this out is because we're going to start looking at it, and it doesn't mean that we shy away yet, but we're getting close. And some of this stuff might mean we shy away today, but there's pitchers now that are going to be starting to show up on a list. Well, they're on my list that are reaching innings problems. So today, where's my thing? Today we have pitching. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 guys that are starting pitching today that are on my pitcher list to be careful of. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to shy away from them today, but it could. So the first guy on the list, for example, is Schwellenbach, who pitches for the Braves. Now, the reason he's on the list is because he has thrown 89 innings. Last year, he threw 64 innings. Now, he hasn't shown a lack of substance yet, and they haven't shut him down yet. But one of the things that I'm noticing is some of the stuff is changing. Certain guys are getting moved around. Certain guys are getting skipped starts because, they're at innings problems. So Spencer Schwellenbach is the first guy I'm looking at today on my list. The other guys on the list today are Michael King in San Diego. And I'm going to be honest, we're going to cover this game. I'm doing everything I can possibly do not to bet this game. I want to bet San Diego so bad, but I didn't do it. And we'll talk about it. But he's on the list. And his counterpart, Ben Lively, is also on the list. Now, for King, you got to remember when he pitched for the Yankees, he was a relief pitcher. Made a couple of starts, but he's really a relief pitcher. And he threw 104 innings last year and 51 the year before that. He already has 111. And he pitched a great start this time, the last time he pitched. So usually these guys are going to go 25 to 45 innings above what they did a year before. And then they just get totally shut down. So Michael King is starting to get there. Ben Lively, he's at 88 innings. Last year he threw 86. In 2022 he threw 0. So he's getting to that point where what are we going to do? We need another pitcher because we're going to be shutting these guys down pretty soon. Blanco from Houston, Ronel Blanco. He's at 109 innings. He threw 125 last year. So he's going to be pushing that number here in a little bit. And another one's kind of interesting. James Paxton, he's at that innings issue. James Paxton is at, where's my sheet here? He's at 84 innings right now. He threw 96 last year, and he threw 0 the year before. Now, I get it. He was a starting pitcher years ago and threw 200 innings. But that's not where he's at now, and he's, 75 years old. So as you get going along down the line, you got to watch for this stuff because you're going to get diminishing returns, and you're going to have guys that, especially for futures bets and, trying to win divisions. some of this stuff's not going to happen. Like Garrett Crochet, everybody wants Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet is a relief pitcher last year. Last year he threw 24 innings. The year before that, 0, and this year he's thrown 107. So you think he's going to keep going? I mean, I think they'll let him go for a little while because he's really good, but you got an issue. So anyway, point being is these guys you got to watch their innings, and then you have diminishing returns on their innings, like Jordan Hicks. We noticed Jordan Hicks as he's gotten to his point where he's at 95 innings this year. The most he's ever thrown is 65 last year and 61 the year before that. And now he can't throw strikes and he can't get people out. So, he's got a diminishing returns, and we want to get ahead of that and bet against these guys, or at least be aware of it. Maybe you bet totals or you do other things at the beginning, and we go from there. All right. So that all being said, we're having a good weekend, right? Good way to start. But I want to be real careful. We don't want to go out there and just start shooting our pistol off our hip and go, man, it looks like shooting fish in a barrel, because it's really not. And there's a lot of danger on today's card. And it depends on how you really want to bet stuff. So I think one of the safest bets today is the Minnesota Twins. But you got to have a taste for that. And what I mean is, they play the Brewers, and they play Aaron Savali's pitching for the Brewers. Now, you got to remember Savali, and he went to the Rays, but before he was with the Rays, he was with Cleveland. So Cleveland and Minnesota play in the same division. Minnesota has seen Savali 8 million times. They know who Savali is. They know what he can throw. And Savali is not the greatest pitcher in the world. In fact, he's a mistake guy that has high metrics, has high home run rates. Minnesota should just light him up. In my number on this game, and why I like the game, my number is Minnesota minus 170. The number is minus 155. So what is your tolerance for minus 155, I guess is the question. So the way I do this and the way I look at it is I'm looking for value and I want to make bets. So if I can pay 155 and I think it should be 170, it's on sale. Not by very much, but it's still on sale. The EV return on that, EV positive, is 3.58%. So if you make this bet 1,000 times, you're going to return profitably a 3.58% return. And that's what I'm looking for. So I don't know if you want to count this as something I'm giving out as a play. I think it's worth a bet. I think you should bet. But at the same time, I tell you that it's minus 155. So how many people go out there and pay minus 155? Well, I'll pay minus 155 when I think it should be minus 170 because I think it's on sale. So, and where you come running into this and some of the other, I broke it down a little bit. You got Joe Ryan, and I haven't been real good with Joe Ryan this year. I've bet him a couple of times. He hasn't won. Here we are betting him again. But his metrics are green. Green is top 25% in all baseball. He's a 3.30 xFIP, 2.99 Sierra, 2.81 FIP. Those are great numbers. Strikeout rate 11.5. Walk rate 1.5. So you don't put anybody on. He strikes out a lot of the guys you're going to face. His whip rate's 1.19. He's good. His hard hit rate's only 22%. And he's going to face Savali today. And Savali gives up lots of hits. His xFIP is 4.62. So a difference of 1.5 runs in this game between those two pitchers. And then when you flip it over, the only concern that I had, and it's a temporary thing because Minnesota can hit. Minnesota came out of the break and they're not hitting. They're 29th in baseball. Milwaukee is 6th. So that kind kind of makes you want to go, I don't know if I really want to play this game or not. And I get it. I like to have good offense. I want to bet offense. I don't know how many times I hear people get on Twitter or on these shows or do these things and go, man, I bet on the Marlins today because their pitchers are really good, and then they lost 2-1. Well, the pitchers did what they're supposed to do. They held the other team to 2. It's the offense. You got to make sure that you're betting offense, because if you're not incorporating offense and you're only doing one side of this, you're going to have a lot of one-sided losses like that. You're going to have those Marlins 2-1 losses, and whatever team that has great pitching but can't hit, right? You're gonna run into that, like the Seattle Mariners. They got good pitching. They can't hit. So you run into some of those problems as you go along down the road, and then you just gotta kind of wait for your opportunities for when certain teams get hot. So, for example, this is a play I think you should make too. This is the Oakland A's. How often am I ever on here telling you to bet Oakland A's? Probably not very often. They're the number one team in offense right now over the last 7 days. I think it's only 3 or 4 games, but that's a great way to look at it in 3 or 4 games because you get the right information right now when you need it. And the Oakland A's offense, they are number one in baseball. Their weighted runs created plus is 244%. So they're 144% better than a regular offense. Like, they're double as good as any offense right now. They're number one in isolated power, number one on offensive WAR. They've scored 39 runs in 3 games. That's pretty good. You're telling me you can score 13 runs a game? I think you should be betting on that team until they quit scoring runs, because even if your pitcher gives up 4 or 5, you're going to score 13. I mean, that's the idea, right? The idea is to understand how valuable the differentiation of the offense is, because you can sit here and break down all these different categories of pitching, and then you can come down to it and go, well, this pitcher's got this little tiny edge. Well, if you got a team that's scoring 13 runs a game on offense, that's not just a little edge. That's like, that's like one of the biggest edges you could ever have. Now they're minus 130 or something like that today, but think about that. The number one offense in baseball scoring 13 runs is only minus 130 against the Angels, and the Angels are, one of the worst teams in baseball. They're not the worst team, but they're one of them, and the Angels are starting Fulmer today, right? Fulmer is a relief pitcher, never pitched past 5 innings. He pitched 4.2 innings last time he pitched, and threw really good. So I'm going to guess he's not going to throw as good today, and he's facing the number one offense. I think you should be betting on the Oakland A's at minus 130. So, I like to give out these plays that a lot of times are closer to even or close to, money line dogs and stuff. It's not really happening that way today. And look, every card every day is different. We talked about that yesterday a little bit. Every card, and I say card, and I mean slate of games, is different. You got 30 different pitchers today than there were yesterday. Matchups, pitching-wise, team-wise are similar, but you're going to have different lineups, different batting orders, different, scenarios, and then in this case, we're on Sunday now. So, for example, the Philadelphia Phillies play the Pirates today. The Phillies are starting a kid, Phillips, that's only pitched once. And they're facing the Pirates, and the Pirates are throwing Marco Gonzalez, who's had he's had 1 start since he came off the disabled list. But he's a soft tosser, a guy that gets beat up a lot. But when he's on, he's pretty good. But the reason I bring this game up is because you really think that the leader in the National League is going to get swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates? I don't know the answer to that question. So that's where some of these other dynamics come into play of okay, well, the Pirates have beaten the Phillies twice. Are they going to beat them 3 straight times? It's unlikely. But that's your pitching matchup. That's your pitching scenario. And it makes it kind of weird. So I see this game as 100% value on the Philadelphia Phillies. I know that this kid's pitching and people don't know who he is and all that stuff. But he's like minus 120. The Phillies, minus 120 against Marco Gonzalez. Are you kidding? I think that some things, it's like that game yesterday with Dylan Cease, right? We talked about it where when he's on, like you just can't, what are you going to do? You're going to go up to bat and turn around and walk away. He pitched, I think, 7 innings yesterday, gave up 1 hit, had 10 strikeouts. It was dominating the Cleveland Guardians yesterday. And we felt like that was going to happen, so that's why we bet it. And when you're sitting here and you're going Phillies, you just get this feeling of they're not going to lose 3 straight to the Pirates, and especially to a guy like Marco Gonzalez. Now, they could. It's way different this time in baseball than it was, 5 years ago. 5 years ago, the people be betting on the Phillies because they're not going to get swept. But now they don't worry about stuff like that. But you also have to look at it like, look, this is, them and the Dodgers are the best team in the National League. And the Pirates are trying to get to a playoff spot, trying. So, they're throwing old men out there. So I just don't think that, this is a spot where you want to certainly support the Pirates. If anything, you pass on the play if you don't feel good about it. But you look at it and you go, can this really happen? Well, yeah, everything can happen. But what's the percentage of that? My number on this game, just so you know, my number on the game is Phillies minus 170. 170, and you can get them at 120. They're on sale. Buy them. And if they turn out to be a sour sack, okay, buy something else on sale, and all of a sudden you got, well, this was a good sale price and that one wasn't. So anyway, thinking about that game and kind of breaking it down and looking at it, I think that some of this stuff becomes kind of obvious. Yesterday when we were talking about San Diego, look, San Diego, they're the second best team to the Dodgers in their division, but the Diamondbacks are coming on. But, yesterday's game, you had, such a big pitching edge for San Diego with Cease over Williams. And Cease was kind of the underdog. And I'm sitting there going, how is this possible? This doesn't make sense. They're a better team. And we get into that same problem again today. I will tell you, the game that I bet that I gave to the guys today is the Sunday night game. So we got plenty of time. So I'll get to that one. As we're getting through this, I know games are getting ready to go here in a few minutes. So I wanted to touch base on some of this stuff because there's things I think that you should do, like the Minnesota Twins. I think it's a good bet, but it's minus 155. If you want to pay it, then okay, great. If you don't want to pay it, I understand. I think the Phillies are a good play because you have to bet value. You have to bet it because over the course of 1,000 bets, value is what you're going to win at. So that's what you bet. You bet value, right? We were on Detroit. Detroit's won 2 in a row against Toronto. And, we talked about Flaherty. We talked about some of these guys. And we talked about Olsen yesterday. Well, the truth is Detroit's the right side to bet again today. Now, I didn't bet it, but because I don't trust Montero. And I don't like big underdogs. He's a plus 140 today, and that's sort of out of my stretch zone. I don't mind paying mine at plus 120s, plus 125s. I don't want to pay mine at plus 140s. You don't win enough of those to bet them, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, so when you think about this and you kind of look at it, that's another one of those games. Well, is Detroit really going to beat Toronto 3 straight times? Well, you got to remember, Detroit's actually the better team. We talked about that. Detroit's more evenish on terms of where they are with run differential. They're like, I think, minus 6 runs right now. I don't I can look real fast, but they're like that number. Boom, here we go. Go to standings. And Detroit is -2 runs. And the Blue Jays are -71 runs. That's a lot of run difference. That's 70 runs. So trying to get that gap right to close off, it's almost, it's so the way we talked about it before was Toronto's -71 runs. So they are closer to like the Oakland A's, who are -67 runs, than they are to Detroit at -2. So when you compare these teams, would you then say, okay, well, at -2, you have a team like the Texas Rangers are -3. Well, that's where Detroit is, guys. They're that kind of team. They're good, but they're not great. They're good. It's like Texas. They're good, but they're not great. They need to start flipping things around for Texas to be good. But Toronto, they're not good at all. They're a bad team. So the difference in this particular spot is Kevin Gausman. Kevin Gausman is dominant better than Montero is. So I don't feel good about trying to support it, but that's the right side. Detroit's the right side. I think the Mets are a good play today. The New York Mets. You have Christian Scott on the mound. Now, everybody loves that kid. Thinks he's really good. And you know what? Let me flip to him real fast so that I can explain this. Christian Scott, where are you? There you are. So what if I told you that Christian Scott is pitching against Trevor Rogers, right, for the Marlins? But, everybody's like, oh, he's got great stuff. Well, you know what his stuff grade's at? 89. And we talked about 100. That's the number you want or more. He's 89. Trevor Rogers is 91. So theoretically, Trevor Rogers has better stuff. Now, when it comes to pitcher plus, what they use their arsenal and how they do well with it, Christian Scott's a 100 and Rogers is a 97. So you can get a little bit better pitching from Scott. But here's my concern with Scott. I know he's a young kid. He's making some starts this year. He's made 8. And, the Mets are an over 500-ish team, not by much, but they are. In those 8 starts, the Mets have won twice. That's it. They're 2-6. So I don't want to sit here and tell you that you want to go crazy in the support for him. But Rogers has made 19 starts for the Marlins. They lose a lot. But they shouldn't lose as much as this guy loses. He's made 19 starts, only won 4 times. That's not very good. So I think that there's value in this game in a sense that the Mets, they've only scored 3.3 runs a game. They've only scored 10 runs in the last 3 games. So that's not enough. But their offense grades at an 8. Offensive WAR is an 8. That means that they're getting guys on base. They're doing the stuff they need to do. They just can't get the runs in, right? They're leaving them on. So you're facing a guy that's only won 4 games in 19 tries. I think you're going to get runs in. And in this game, the Mets scored 1 run yesterday. Of course, they won the game 1-0, but they won 1. They scored 1 run. And the day before that, they got beat like 6-4. So that, against the Marlins. So I think this is one of those spots. There's no home field advantage, true edge for Miami down in Miami's stadium. Those guys are all waiting to be traded and so forth. I don't know how much fight they have in them. I will tell you that this is one of those rivalry games that people don't really know about. I lived on that coast in Florida for a while and got to know the Marlins and spent a lot of time in their clubhouse and doing some stuff with them. They hate the Mets. It's a rivalry game for them, and it's because on that coast, people vacation and have vacation houses that are coming down from New York, and they go down there and watch those games, and they root for the Mets, and they don't like that, and they fight about that, and they get a little fiery. I don't know if they're going to have that fire in them today, but I like the Mets in this game. But it's a minus 130 though, I think. So it's one of those. Where's my numbers out of this game? Why? There we go. It's clear over there for crying out loud. The number in the game right this minute is Mets minus 135. So people are betting them up now a little bit. Well, it opened at 150, which is closer to what my number is. My number is like 151, and you're buying them on sale, So I like the idea that this is a right play for the Mets, but it's minus 135 if you wanted to play it. Now the game I'm really struggling with is this Padres game. I like the Padres in this game. I like them in the first 5 innings. I like them a lot. I'm doing everything I can to not push the button. The reason I don't want to push the button is because of only one thing. There's only one thing that bothers me on this whole game. But otherwise, I think it's the same thing as what happened yesterday with these two. The issue to me is that Michael King shows up on my list for having pitcher innings issues, and his very last start was a game score 70. So his average start for the whole season is 55. For his last 7's a 59. So he threw a 70. He's not going to throw a 70. He's going to go the other way. I don't know how far the other way he's going to go is my problem. The issue is Cleveland's offense is dead last in baseball right now, 30 out of 30. And I pulled this up, and I was trying to hold it open, but I think I closed it. I wanted to share with you guys. Sometimes people get a misunderstanding about teams, and my opinion is I've always liked Cleveland this season because for whatever reason they're winning based on their offense, and what they're doing is they're getting productivity out of their offense. And to a degree, they're getting super lucky. They're getting the right sequencing of things. Base runs, they're minus 10 wins. That means they're 10 wins ahead of what they should be based on just their normal offensive production. So when the sequencing of the events happen just right because of the certain situations, you win games, right? I talk about this before. If you have 7 events and these same 7 events happen. So let's say a guy gets a walk, and a walk, and then a home run. That's 4 runs. And then strikeout. That's 7 events. But if you do the same 7 events, but in a different sequence, different things happen. So the same team and the other team comes up, they have a home run, 3 walks, and then 3 strikeouts, they get 1 run. And the other team had 4. So Cleveland, based on sequencing of events, has capitalized to the tune of 10 wins better than where they should be because of that. So when I power rank teams and I do this stuff, I take those 10 wins away. So their true value shows up right here. And all of a sudden, San Diego is like, they're the better team. They're the better team. And what interested me was I wanted to share this because I'm looking at the Cleveland Guardians' last 10 games, right? And this is how many runs they scored. They scored 0 yesterday because they got shut out. They scored 7 the day before that. Then they scored 0 because they got shut out. Then they scored 4. Then they scored 0 because they got shut out. Then they scored 1 then they scored 4, then they scored 9, then they scored 0 because they got shut out. That's a lot of shutouts in 10 games, isn't it? So 1, 2, 3, 4 shutouts in 9 games, and one of those games they only scored once. So that's not good offense. They scored 4 runs twice, and with the pitching that Cleveland has, that's not necessarily enough to win. So I think Cleveland's going to get passed by Minnesota, and I think that they play these teams like San Diego and some of these other second place type teams in other divisions or whatever. They're better than Cleveland, and unless Bybee's pitching for Cleveland, these guys really have to hit. And right now, when Cleveland is hitting at a tune of offense, Cleveland is hitting at a tune of dead last, 30 out of 30, 30 out of 30 in isolated power, and weighted runs created plus they're minus 80%. That means they're 80% worse than a regular offense. And they're going to be facing San Diego, who's not a juggernaut on offense right now. But, yesterday they ended up scoring, I think, 7 runs, 7-0. They scored 3 in 1 inning, and then, it was just frustrating. Manny Machado leaves the bases loaded. Cronenworth strikes out. All these guys are doing stupid stuff. But they still scored some runs, and that's because the pitcher for Cleveland walked in a run, and then he hit a batter, walked in, got another run. I forget what the catcher for San Diego drove in a run. So that's how they got their 3 runs in the first 5 innings yesterday. And then, they scored 4 more times. And, Cleveland had to face Cease, who he struck out 10 guys. So, it's one of those spots. And I think you could see that today. My concern, and here's what you can do in a spot like this. Instead of making a full unit bet, whatever your unit is, if I'm going to go out here and make a $500 bet or something on a game, and I go, God, I really want to bet this game. I want to bet this game, but I got this major concern. And my major concern is that King is off of a game score 70. I know you guys think I'm nuts. But when he pitched such a good game, he's not going to do that again. He's not. Even if this team's offense is 30th in the – but is it enough? Can he pitch enough? Well, you can try it. Maybe you do a quarter of a bet. Maybe you do a half of a bet. Maybe you put $25 on it. Maybe you put $10 on it. Maybe you put whatever. But if it's not worth the value, then don't do it at all. So what I mean is say you bet $100 a game just because it makes it in, and then you're going to put $25 on this bet. Well, if it's not enough that you care about whether you won or lost the bet, then don't bet. Does that make sense? I see this all the time on these guys. I'll put a 0.25% or a quarter unit on this game and half a unit on that game and a quarter on this game. And, because they're putting out a lot of props in a lot of ways too. And this is a 1/10 of a bet and all that stuff. Look, man, do you really realize what that means? To a $100 better, if you're put a tenth of a bet out there, put $10 on this bet. You think that guy cares whether he wins $10 or not? He wants to bet $100 because that makes his account go. It gets his blood flow flowing. It gets things juicy. It makes it gets things going. If you're making quarter bets and stuff like that, they still got to be worthwhile. It'd be fun to put a quarter bet on something where your payout. Your odds on return was, like 1,000 to 1 or something where, I put $25 on this and I win 25,000 back or 2,500 or something, that'd be different. But, so that's where I get into this little conundrum of how to represent this to you guys in a good way. I like the bet. I'm not betting it. And I'm only steered away for the one reason, and that one reason only, is I think King's going to not pitch as well as he did the last time, and he's hitting that innings problem, The bullpen in San Diego hasn't been real good, and they're not going to match up to Cleveland's bullpen. So this is a first 5 innings bet. So my guy's got to go 5 innings and beat Ben Lively. Can he do that? Yes, I think he can. Ben Lively is very hittable. He's not a strikeout guy, and he's on the list too. But he's older and doesn't throw as hard, so I don't think he's not gonna have certain issues that way. So I think when you run into this and you deal with it, you go, how do I bet it? How do I bet it? How do I bet it? Just be careful. I have a check mark sitting here on my sheet of paper going, I wanted to bet this game. But I talked myself into passing. That doesn't mean that I won't go back and put a little bit on it just to prove I was right. But the point being is, I think it's a good play. My number on this game, if I can flip this to here, I told you before, you got to bet value, man. And when you're out here trying to bet value and you're trying to do all this stuff, the reality becomes is you can't pass up your value spots. My number is San Diego minus 123. That's my number. San Diego minus 123, and the current number, and it made me mad when I flipped over to try to bet this game. San Diego is Cleveland's minus 110, so you can get them at plus 100, but that's for the full game. If you go, and I did this because I was going to make this bet, and I was expecting it to be about the same. It's not the same. San Diego's minus 110 or minus 120 in the first 5 innings. And I go, well, that sort of really changes it. So if you can't get San Diego in the first 5 innings at either even money or minus 110, don't bet it at all because that takes away the value. But I like the play. All right, so we talked a lot about some of these things. Here's another one that I think is one of those good wheelhouse kind of bets. And I don't bet this team hardly ever. But this is the Colorado Rockies. Man, I'm sitting here talking about the Colorado Rockies, and I just can't believe this Sunday. So the Colorado Rockies are playing at home against the San Francisco Giants. Hayden Birdsong is pitching for the Giants, and he's a young kid. He's been depends on who you listen to. You listen to his manager supports him or whatever and thinks he's the greatest guy in the world. But you look at the data, and the data tells me that he's not as good as Feltner. Feltner's pitching for Colorado today. And Colorado, here we go. So remember yesterday we talked about how guys sometimes pitch down. Like he has a 103 stuff plus Birdsong. That means his stuff's pretty good. His stuff being vertical movement, horizontal movement, velocity, stuff like that. How his stuff does. But he pitches to a 94. That's not good. And Feltner pitches to a 92, and he is a 92. So he maximizes everything he's got. But where I liked sort of what's going on here, Birdsong has an xFIP of 501 and a FIP of 519 and a Sierra 475. I say the numbers just so you kind of hear them. But that means he's the worst 25% of all of baseball, and he's only made 4 starts. And so that's not good. And in those 4 starts, his best start was his last start. It was a 56. That's his best start. So remember, a guy's going to have an outlier low, an outlier high, and then average starts. So his first start was a 39. Here's his outlier low. This one's a 56. His last one was a 52. So there you kind of have that average to outlier high number. So he's going to fit in there somewhere between 39 and 56. He's probably going to be 50 or less. So if he's game score 50 or less, the reality becomes that's right in the wheelhouse for what Colorado can do right now. So Colorado on offense has scored 19 runs in the last 3 games, averaging 6.3 runs a game. They rank 4th in all of baseball and 2nd in isolated power. And you got to face this kid and you're going to try to capitalize? I think you can. And they're pitching their best pitcher in Feltner. Feltner. So here's another good way to say it. When I break down these games and make the the adjustment for the pitcher to make my line, I'm using projected WAR numbers, and the projected WAR number for Feltner is a 2.0, 1.9, so right around 2. For Birdsong, it's a 0 or a minus 0.1. Holy cap, what a difference that is. You've got it. So if you're a 0, that means you're no better than another call-up kid from AAA. You're no better than that. If you're a 2, that means you're 2 wins better than a guy from AAA being called up. So you're got some value there. So I think that where you run into this is Feltner's the better pitcher, and certainly right now Colorado's offense is much better than the Giants' offense. The Giants' offense right now, they've scored 9 runs in 3 games. They rank 23rd in offense, 20% weighted runs created plus below the number. So theoretically, all you got to do is make sure that Feltner is not out here giving up a bunch of home runs. And how many home runs he's given up in the last 30 days? 0. So I think you run into a spot here where you go and say, this is pretty good for Feltner. He's a good ground ball pitcher. There's only 2 guys that light up in green for today's list of pitchers that are in ground balls, and he's one of them. The other one is Fad for Arizona. So you can get him at plus 130, right? Is that the number I have? No, plus 120. Plus 120 for Feltner at home. And the Giants, when the Giants don't hit, they're not very good. Well, I guess most teams when they don't hit aren't very good. But usually, if you have strong pitching, you can stay within games. I don't think this kid's going to be a strong pitcher to keep them in this game. And this will be his first time pitching in Colorado. So I think it's a good play. I think you take Colorado today. Now I'm going to hit the game tonight and then a couple other spots here, but this is the game I actually bet. This is the one I put the money on, and this is Dodgers Red Sox. And the Red Sox are one of these teams that I don't think people realize how good they are. The Red Sox, based off of sequencing, should be much higher than what they are. First of all, they're shortchanged a little bit because of the events that they take place. They've been unlucky. So their record doesn't show that quality. But if I were to go back over here and try to explain that in a little different method, where's that thing at again? There we go. We're going to go to that right here. I think you'll see this in a little different way. And so the Red Sox are right now 9 games over 500. They are plus 40 on run differential, plus 40. So that means that a team like the Minnesota Twins are plus 40. The Minnesota Twins are knocking on the door of the Cleveland Guardians to be in first place in that division. They are similar to teams like the Braves are plus 60, and the Red Sox are plus 40, right? So the Houston Astros are plus 54. So those are the teams that you should think like what Boston is. I think people think Boston's more like the Rays or something, and they're not. The Rays are minus 60 runs. The Rays are more like the Angels. So when you start to think about this and where this goes, number one, put some put some understanding on the idea that the Red Sox are pretty good. That's number one. Number two, the Red Sox have guys that can pitch. That's what they got. They have, Tanner Houck, Pivetta, Cutter Crawford. That's who's pitching today. And I bring up these guys' names because Cutter Crawford is the second best. He's the second best one of all of those guys. Houck is the best one. Cutter Crawford is the next best one. And when you start to think about where he's at, Cutter Crawford's Sierra number is 3.38. That is the top 25% in all of baseball. All of baseball. He's there. That's one. There's two guys. Shouldn't say two. There's three guys. That's it. 30 pitchers today. 3 of them are better in Sierra, which is a fancy ERA. There are 3 guys better than him out of all today's pitchers. Joe Ryan, who we talked about with the Mets, or the Twins. Lugo, who was the All-Star guy for the Padres or for the Royals, and King for the Padres. Right, the guys we like, those are the only ones better than Crawford, and he's right there with them in the top 25%. The other thing that Crawford doesn't do is he doesn't walk anybody. 1.63 walk rate, top 25% of all baseball. That means you got to earn your way on. Okay, well, how are you going to earn your way on when the batting average against is 156? His whip rate is 0.72. Nobody better than him today in either one of those categories. It's amazing at how he's controlling the opponent's offense. So the Dodgers are going to have to work and work and work, right? Because he doesn't walk them, and his strikeout rate's not like elite. It's average. It's not elite. So balls are going to be in play, but he gets outs. He gets outs because he puts the ball in the right place. Of every pitcher today, the WPA is number 1. So win percent added, he's the number 1 pitcher on today's board. So win percent added just means, again, I'm sorry if I'm redundant, but a lot of times when I say these acronyms, I got to make sure people understand what I'm saying because it sometimes can come across as a different language. They take all of his good stuff. Right? He got this guy out with this. The ball was put in the right location. This is a great pitch. This is great outcome. All the positive things go in this column, and they add them all up. And then all the negative things go in this column, and they add them up. Then they subtract the 2. And in this case, he has way more positive outcomes, positive pitches, positive things than he does negative ones, which means he doesn't make mistakes. He's not out there throwing the ball to a point where these guys are going to hit it. So the guy that makes the most mistakes today is St. Louis Miles Michaelis. He's a minus 47. That means that when you do the same thing, add them all up, he's got more negative pitches than he does positive ones. So those are guys you want to attack. Now, I got him on my list to go attack him, but I don't want to attack him because he threw a game score 15 his last time out there. And when you throw a game score 15, that's an outlier extremely low. You're going to have an outlier above that this time. And Schwellenbach, who pitches for Atlanta, has a game score 73, so he's going to be vice versa of that. So it's kind of a collision of that. It's not the right time. So, let's find another spot. So that's what we're doing, right? We're finding these other spots. So Crawford, I think, is the better pitcher today, by far, no question. And offensively, the Dodgers are going to have to work. I mean, they're going to have to work to score runs. Now, on the other side, you got Paxton. We said at the beginning of the show today, Paxton is on my innings watch pitcher. And if I go find him on my sheet again, there he is. He's thrown 84 innings this year. Last year, he threw 96. And the year before that, 0. So when you start to think about where you're at, he's starting to lose. He's starting to get to that tired spot. And he's a little older, so I don't think he's going to be one of those guys they let throw another 40 innings, right? So when you look at his numbers, Of all the pitchers that pitched today, and there's 30 of them, he has the worst xFIP and worst Sierra number. So top 25, but he's in the bottom 25% of all of baseball. 5.80, 5.70. If you just kind of look at him, the Sierra number is an important number. But when you look at him, Crawford's Sierra is 3.38 and Paxton 5.70. That's 2.5 runs almost. So in a lot of ways, that's what that means. That means that this pitcher is going to give up 2.5 runs less than that guy. And then you can break it out. How's come he's so bad? Well, he doesn't strike guys out, right? I mean, he's got an average strikeout rate for an old guy. But he's gone back to this, I can't find the strike zone problem. He's walking 5.6 guys per 9 innings. That's a lot. There's nobody that walks more than that. You'd think 4 is a lot. He's he's over 5.5. That's crazy. So then you break it out. His batting average against 316. Remember, league average is 240, 242 or something like that. And his whip rate, you don't want it to be above a 1, really. Average is still going to be in that 1 to, say, 1.3, something like that. He's at 1.98. So you can hit him. And if you can't hit him, he'll put you on base. So you're going to have opportunities, 2 per inning. That's what he does. 2 guys per inning. And he doesn't give up ground balls, so it's hard to get double plays, 27%. It's the lowest ground ball percentage of all the pitchers today. And his hard hit rate is in the worst 25%. It's 43.5. Now, this is a big change. I say big change because on the course of the season, his WPA is one of the best WPAs in baseball. That tells me that this innings thing is getting to him, right? It's just something that started happening for him over the last 30 days. He's having struggles. He's making mistakes. So I think you can capitalize off of that. And then we look just to make sure we flip this to offense and we go Boston, number 5 in baseball. They've scored 12 runs, 4 runs per game. They're number 8 in isolated power. They're 38% or 36% in weighted runs created plus to the good side. And the Dodgers, 18th in baseball, and they're even, well, -1% in weighted runs created plus. So they're average. So now you have to have an average offense work really hard against a good pitcher, or you have a good offense that is going to be given the opportunity to hit and be put on base. I like it, right? And you know what else? It's a spot where Boston is the underdog. Maybe by just a little bit. My number that I got him at, I think, was +103 or something. But this is the kind of spot I'm looking for. These happen. I think it's a total mistake, this line. My number on the game in this particular spot, where is it? Here we go. My number on the game is I think Boston should be -108 favorites. And I'm getting them at +103. So there's value there. I bet it. That's the one I personally bet. That's the one that I took on. Now, I will say that I think there's a lot of good spots, but I think there's I measure things by risk averseness. And the problem with me is, and especially doing this as a living, I don't ever want to lose a bet because I know what it takes to put the money back in there. And I know what it means when I lose a bet. When I lose a bet, it means, makes filling up my gas tank harder, makes going to the grocery store, buying food harder, makes living my life harder if I lose a bet. So I don't want to ever lose a bet. So I don't want to make losing bets. However, risk averseness means sometimes you can go out there and you can go, well, this may not win, but it has a return on investment that I should bet it. And that's where I come in with my EV positive stuff and go, Scott, what are you doing? You need to be making these bets. And then I go to put it in the window and I can't bet it convictedly, so I don't. So I want to make sure that you guys understand, if I tell you that I bet something, I feel really good about it. If I tell you that's a good play, it doesn't mean I bet it, but I think you should, because my numbers, everything I have, the handicap tells me you should be betting that stuff. And it's like the other day, right? The other day we won 4 bets on this show. I personally didn't win any bets. So I'm wanting you to win, and I want to teach you how. And by doing that, sometimes you're going to run across lots of different opportunities and lots of different things. And when these things come out, you talk about them and you kind of learn a little bit about how the mind works to what you should be looking at to figure out all this stuff and where it goes. One of the things we didn't talk about in this show right now, we got a lot of people on right now, but one of the things that we didn't talk about here is we didn't talk about Kansas City and Lugo today. And the reason I say that is because you don't go out and bet -2. What is he? -2 something, 220, something like that. Where's Kansas City? There they are. So listed out as like -240. I don't know what it is right this very second. I can look, but that's not the point. My number says -293. So I'm telling you that I think that even at 240, that's a great bet. I'm not telling you to go do that. But so then you have to flip that, right? You have to go, well, if that's value, let's look at that game. And, I have my score predictor comes out and it tells me White Sox 3.6 runs and Kansas City Royals 3.6 runs. I don't see value in then going to that and going find a run line, because the run line isn't there. It's not there. So Thorpe is pitching for the White Sox, and I don't like Thorpe. I don't think his stuff is very good. That said, this is what I will tell you about Thorpe that I don't think a lot of people really realize is he's made 4 starts. He's pitched 24 innings. That's pretty good to be able to go 6 innings. And then think about this. I told you to keep an eye on pitchers when they pitch 24. Well, in this case, he's pitched 24 innings. You want to have at least 24 hits or less. Match the hits or less. And then you're okay. Like we were just talking about having a guy that's put 2 guys on per inning. You want to not do that through hits. And you certainly don't want to walk guys, so you can control these things. Well, Thorpe, 24.1 innings, he's only allowed 10 hits. That's it, 10. So he's hard to get on base against. He's hard to hit. So if you're trying to get to a point where you're going to go and do this on the run line, don't. And that's why I say this all the time. The run line is not a function of the money line. And people go and say, well, I'm going to take this run line or money line that's -240, turn it into -1.5 and pay -135. Don't do that. I get it that's going to change your bet to -135 instead of 220, but do it for the right reason, not the wrong reason. The right reason is that the score you predicted or the score of that game matches a converted run number where you think they're going to win by 2 or more and fits the total score, not the money line. So what did I say? It was 3.6 to 3.6, right? Is that what my score came out to be? Where is it at? 3.6 to 3.6. And in this game, where is it? There it is. The total is 8. So that kind of pretty close. So there's no value in the run line to flip it, to bet it. I've bet a lot of run lines. I've been trying to teach people how to bet run lines and not to be afraid of run lines. But this is not the spot for that. And that's why I brought it up is, Lugo's going to pitch good today because he's off a bad start. He's going to pitch good today. So you would think, okay, well, if the White Sox, who don't have a good offense, they don't score very well, this would be a good spot. Well, that's what I thought. So I started looking at it, and then I go, well, I don't know. Thorpe's pretty good. Kansas City Royals don't have, this juggernaut offense right now. Sometimes they do. Every once in a while they get going. But right now they're not going crazy. So you sit there and you go, 4-4 doesn't sound like it could be the wrong number. It could be 4-3. And if that's the case, I lose my run line bet. And the run line then is totally tied to the total. That's the big point to make here. Not that it's tied to the money line, because it's not. So when you think about it, make sure that you're doing those things betting wise, because I don't mind anybody going and saying, hey, I don't want to pay minus 220, because I don't want to pay 220 either. But you've got to make it right via what the total is, not because it's the money line and you're just trying to make a bet. Because I don't know how many times you lose a bet, then you just changed it, right? And I'm not saying, they could go out there and they could win this game 8-1. But, they've just won 2 games like that already. So, history would say, this is a spot where maybe the White Sox are going to hit a little because they haven't hit this whole series. All right. So I'm trying to see if I got any other notes over here. I talked about going in and attacking pitchers. That was one of our targets that we've been working on. And today, the number one pitcher on the board to attack is James Paxton. So I went after him. So that's what I did. The second pitcher to go after is Miles Michaelis. He's the second pitcher. And I thought about it, and I'm looking at him. Now, for those of you who are on here that don't know what I'm talking about, when I'm going in to attack a pitcher, I'm looking at SOPS plus. And see, this is like different language. So what it means is it's the slugging percentage and on-base percentage that the pitcher has against the opponent's offense. And it's graded on a scale of 100. So if you're a 140, that means you're 40% worse than an average pitcher. If you're at 70, you're 30% better than an average pitcher. Now, we got to remember what better than means. You're better at controlling the opponent's offense. And when you're a pitcher and you're a better, you want a guy that's going to be either good at that or bad at that. And if you find a guy that's bad at that, you want to go attack that guy and you want to bet against that guy, especially if you got an offense that can do it. So in the case of Miles Michaelis, he's a 140, second worst pitcher today. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. We should go get him. Let me look at some other stuff. He's made 20 starts so far for the Cardinals. He's won 9 times, so 9-11. Well, that's not the worst thing in the world. If you bet on him in all those times, he's minus $97. That's what he is. So that's not the worst thing, because some of these guys, like Savali, we talked about, he's minus 957. If you bet on him, he's made 15 or 19 starts. You bet on that many times, you've lost almost $1,000 betting on that guy. So you want to bet against him. So as you're doing this and you go forward, then you go and say, all right, this makes sense. So far everything is lining up that, it's not where I want to support him for sure, but do I want to bet against him? So the next thing I will look at is the game score of this time, the last start they made, because game score is a perfect way to judge the pitcher's performance. And it's on a scale. It's not really on a scale. It's a scale, but an average number is 50-51. That's average. High is 60. That's what aces throw for the course of a season. But for one game, you might get a guy that throws a 70, 80, 90 because they're just dominant. Or they might throw such a terrible game that they sing single digits. So when you grade a game score and you're putting it together yourself, you start with 40 points. So think about that. If you start with 40 points and you end up with 10, that's bad, right? You're giving away things. So every hit, you give away stuff. Every inning that you don't pitch, you give away stuff. Every walk, you get points taken away, and you get points added too for very limited runs, for innings that you pitch, for strikeouts that you get, stuff like that. So it's a great way to do this. And then what you can do is you can summarize real fast in increments of 3 starts, 7 starts in the season. Is this guy pitching as good as he normally does? Is he pitching below what he normally does? Because gambling, math is all about regression to the mean. So if you can figure out what that mean is, then you can go, well, in this case, Miles Michaelis throws a 48 for the season. That's his average game score. So right below average. I mean, you don't want to be below average because you're below average, but he's still not like dramatically bad, but below average, not good, 48. But for his last time he went out there, he threw a game score of 15. His last 3 starts is a game score of 48, which is what he is for the season. So that 15 is an offset, and it offsets some of the higher numbers that he had. But he's not going to go through another offset game because he didn't have to have an offset. It's 48. So he's going to throw a better game. His last 7 starts are his game score of 50. So if he throws a game score of 50, for him, that's a little better than what he normally does in the first place. I wouldn't be surprised if he throws a game score of 55-60 today, because that 15 added to that, say, we'll just call it 60, that makes 75 in those 2 starts. Divide that by 2, and you're at like 37.5. 37.5 is way better than the 15 he threw, right? So that's kind of how those things work. They work their way up, and they work their way around. It's the law of averages and the law of regression to the mean. He's not going to throw another 15. He's going to throw much better than that. And the Braves pitcher today, Schwellenbach, threw a 73. See, they threw a high number. His normal score is a 54. So he's going to not throw a 73 today. He's going to regress that number down so that number has to kind of average, get back to that 54. So he might throw a 40. Well, if he throws a 40 and the other guy throws a 60, he's going to lose. Usually, that's what happens. Or they take him out and the bullpen guy comes in and the bullpen changes the outcome of the game. But it's not a good spot to go pick on this particular pitcher as being a bad pitcher. So I passed on that spot. The other spots that we were looking at, or that we look at to attack, I think we probably already have. It was Michaelis, and it was Paxton, which I hammered him, and then Birdsong is over the number, so we went after him. But there's a couple of spots in here where these guys are just over the numbers, and you got to treat those as not necessarily attackable numbers. Meaning, like if you've got a pitcher that, we'll say, here you go, Gosman today is a 103 SOPS, so he's 3% worse than average pitcher. That doesn't mean much. If you're an outlier, go get the outlier. Go attack the outlier. Don't worry about the guy right on the number, because that doesn't, that's kind of where it's at, where you don't need to get in there. Now, the other kind of things you want to look at and maybe try to help separate your days is you want to support pitchers that win. So you go look at the totals here, like that's one of the issues around Blanco, right? Blanco for Houston, they've made 18 starts, won 13 times, 13-5. So you don't want to bet against a guy like that. You want to bet on that guy. Well, I can't get myself, and I might. My problem with him is that he's starting to he's got that innings issue, and Brandon Wu, who is pitching against him, I think his arm fell off. So he's at a spot where all his data and all his numbers have died. He's only thrown 6 innings in 30 days. He's been hurt. He's been struggling. They've been taking him out of games. Something wrong with the guy. but when he was on, he was winning games like crazy. So this is a spot where maybe an over, could be a spot because Blanco is kind of running out of gas, or the worst case, you just play him in the first 5 innings, something like that. But 13-5 for him. You've got I thought there was somebody else that was really good on here. 13-6. This is another spot. I like the Rays, but I can't bet against Stroman. Stroman's made 19 starts for the Yankees. They won 13 times, 13-6 in his starts. Baz is pitching for the Rays, and Baz is a young kid with dynamite stuff. So, he's not Taj Bradley dynamite, but he's pretty good. And these are another one of those spots too, where keep an eye on a certain situation. The last time Baz pitched was against the Yankees. So this is his second straight start against them. So what a pitcher would usually do is the exact opposite of what he did before. So if he throws, let's go back and see what he threw. He threw, I think, a game score 35. Yep. He threw a game score 35, so below average start. Well, he's not going to do that this time. It'll be an above average start. And the reason for that is the batters, they just saw him, so they're going to go, well, this is what he does, this is what he throws, this is how I'm going to attack him. But the pitcher said, I just got beat up by this team. I'm going to change all my stuff. And he goes out there with a different approach and a different adjustment and makes changes, and then the batters get all confused and they don't do well. But it also works the other way, right? So if you had a guy that went out there and threw a game score 70, and now he's going to throw against the same team, he's going to lose. Because the hitters go make the adjustments that the pitcher doesn't. And it's just the way baseball works. So trust me when I tell you, and you can follow it, and you can go look at their game logs, and you can see it. You can see when a pitcher pitches back-to-back against the same team 8 out of 10 times. They do exactly opposite of what they did before, and most bettors bet it from what they last saw, and they lose. So anyway, those are kind of where I'm at today. Show's kind of running a little long again. I just talked too damn much. So anyway, the bet that I made, the bet that I gave out, the bet that the people paid me for today, because I only have really one, was I bet the Red Sox. Now, I will say this. I think I gave out quite a few leans and quite a few spots, right? So I talked about the Phillies. I think there's great value there. I think you can bet the Phillies without a problem. I talked about the Twins. That just depends on what kind of dollar value you really want. I don't think minus 150, 155 was a bad number. I think it should be 170, 175. So you're getting them on sale for the Twins. I liked the Mets today at minus 130, 136, I think was the number. I think the Padres are really good today. I think the Padres, but when you bet the Padres, make sure you play them in the first 5 innings. I like the Oakland A's. And man, this is crazy that you sit there and say you like the Oakland A's. They're the number 1 offense in baseball. I like the Oakland A's today at minus 130. They're facing a Angels team that's got very limited life in them, and the pitcher that's pitching for the A's or for the Angels is a relief guy. He's never pitched more than 5 innings, so it's going to end up being a bullpen game for the Angels. And that kid threw last week, and he threw pretty good, so I don't expect him to throw that good this week. I think Colorado Rockies are a good spot. They're the number 3 baseball team in offense. You can get them as a good dog against Birdsong and the Giants. The Giants aren't hammering the ball right now, so I think and that's be the first start for Birdsong in Colorado. I think you got a good spot there. And I don't remember if I gave out any other kind of leans and stuff as we went along. So, guys, there's a ton of people on here, which is great. I do this every weekend, and I typically break down these games. And if you have questions, make sure you ask. is make sure if you don't understand some of the stuff I say, I don't do that on purpose. I'm not trying to confuse people. I want to make sure that you get it. Just in the comments, make a note, and I'll address it. If you have a game that you really want me to break down, I'll do it live. Because sometimes, I've got stuff picked out that I think is good conversation. Sometimes they're good bets, and then we'll talk about them. But I do this on the weekends. I start at noon on Saturday and Sunday. I do them throughout the week. I don't do Monday because there's very few games on Monday. Usually it's a travel day. So I do Tuesday at 6:15, Wednesday 6:15, and Friday 6:15. Thursday I don't do them, again, travel days. There's not a lot of reason to get on there. And then every weekend, Saturday, Sunday at 12 noon. Hey, Ken, thank you. It says, love to listen. Education is a great thing. Thank you. So, hey, I appreciate you jumping on board, man. And thanks for the communication and thanks for the support. Love it. So as this kind of goes and grows, right, we're doing several things here on this channel. What I'm trying to do is get people to follow me on Twitter, not because I want a big head and want all this stuff going on. Look, I gamble for a living, and I'm just doing this to try to help people. So the second thing here is this channel seems to be pretty popular and seems to be pretty good, and I've got this thing about making sure that people get good information and they don't get all this nonsense that I see everywhere else. And whether it's from other guys like me or not, there's a lot of nonsense. So I don't, it costs me money to put this on, and just put it that way. So what I'm trying to do is get people to follow me on Twitter so that when I do these shows, right now there's like 250 people watching this. This is great. So when we do this, we can get to a point where we have that many people or more, right? And I can sell this to get a sponsor. If I can get a sponsor of this show, that money can go into this show. We can make it bigger. I can get more things done. I can put some graphics and do other stuff to make it more seem like something you'd see on regular TV instead of me sitting here talking and stuff. And then go to my website, not because of anything more than you can follow me on my website, but that's another source of income to pay for the show. So you can do two things. One, there's a lot of information there that I write up, right? Like there's a book there's broken out over certain things, but you can go to the website. Things are broken out on how to gamble, what to gamble, what things mean, all that kind of stuff. A lot of stuff there. People pay me to do this too, right? I don't charge very much money. It's $100. And what they get is a special page on my website where I update all my numbers. All these numbers I talk about is publicized there. So I give them my odds, called Webby Odds. I give them an EV tool, which tells them, here's what the odds are. Here's what my odds are. Here's the bets you should be making and the percentage of EV positive you get. So EV means it's extra value added. So if you make this bet 1,000 times, this percentage of that times, you're going to be a winner. So make the bet 1,000 times and you're going to win, right? That's what you do. So there's a tool for that. And then I give a pitching tool. So all this stuff that I talk about on the show is all right there. Offense, my score predictor, all that stuff is there. And I do it every day. And that's what they get for $100. Plus I put on my plays, what I bet personally. So if you follow those plays, you follow those plays. But hopefully the goal of this is to hopefully get people to learn a little bit more about how to do it, what you should be looking at, what terminology is, so that as things kind of move along here, you're not just going, I need to get a play, and this guy on the website says, or on the internet says to bet this game, because you have no idea what this guy's thinking or where this stuff came from. So hopefully it gives you two things. One, the goal of this whole thing was and is, you need to know what a good bet is. If you know what a good bet is, then you know you're going to be okay. The second part of it is handicapping, right? They're not the same thing. People think of it as the same stuff. You can make good bets and not know anything about handicapping and still make money doing this stuff. You cannot be a good handicapper and make bad bets. Doesn't work. So we teach you how to make good bets, teach you what a good bet is, and then we teach you a little bit about handicapping in today's environment, in today's culture, because baseball today is about a lot of different things than it used to be. And people get all upset about the batting average and, all that stuff. Well, that's the way it is. That's what baseball is, right? So think of it this way. Baseball has become so good with pitchers. The ball moves, and you guys got to understand, it doesn't move just like, and that's it. It moves 18 inches. I mean, it's a foot and a half. It drops 3 or 4 or 5 inches, or it rises 3 or 4 or 5 inches, and it's thrown at a velocity that's never been thrown before. So it's very hard to consistently put guys on base, right? Used to be get them on, get them over, get them in. That's the way baseball was. You wanted to see all this action and move people around. Well, here's what's happened. Baseball's become so hard to get guys on that they want to get one guy on as best they can. Doesn't matter. Walk, take a walk. If you get on by a hit, great. Well, the next guy up's not trying to do anything more than hit a home run. That's all they do. You get a guy on, home run. If the guy, somehow they get 2 guys on, they're all trying to hit home runs. They want a squiggle number, not a 1, because it takes so much work just to get a guy on base that they don't want to waste that opportunity, that effort. They want to hit home runs because it's they're going to score more runs by doing it that way than they are by working at it and working at it and working at it and working at it and working at it. That's what baseball is. And if you bet it that way, you're going to be profitable. So you want to Sabermetrics, which is what I deal with, has the answer to all those questions. Like FIP is fielding independent pitching. That means, what does a pitcher do with walks, strikeouts, and home runs? Well, why is that important? Well, what is an offense trying to do? We just said they don't care what their batting average is. No one cares what their batting average is. They want to get a guy on base and hit a home run. So you want a pitcher, and you want to know what those pitchers' numbers are based off of getting on base via walks, hits, and hitting home runs. Well, that's what FIP measures, fielding independent pitching. And there's a lot of that that's in Sabermetrics that will answer all these questions and give you specific answers so that you can make specific bets. And that's what we're here to do. And that's what hopefully we can get some more retention and get some of this stuff back and get all these people to come the next time we're on, which will be Tuesday. It won't be Monday. But the idea being is to get everybody on so that we can keep developing that and getting this stuff landed so that those messages are out there. So anyway, I appreciate everybody on here. I do have on my website a spot if you want to get anything that I do publish through the website or from Twitter or wherever I put it out. There's a free newsletter. The newsletter basically is anything I publicize goes out and it gets to your email. You can sign up for that for free. If you want plays, the month my picks or month things, if you want to join my service being there, it costs $100. Look, I'm not one of these guys that's taking your $100 and putting it in my bankroll. I don't need your money for that. I don't bet $100 a game and live and eat and do I got to bet bigger than $100. So I don't need your $100 for that. I need your $100 because I don't have a sponsor to the show and I need to grow this channel and we need to do some other stuff and invest it that way. It has nothing to do with those things. All right. So anyway, all that being said, guys, I appreciate it. It was great fun. Have a great rest of your Sunday. And hopefully we'll get some of these guys back on Tuesday. A lot of big crowd today, so I appreciate it. And just keep growing it as we go. And thank you so much. Good luck. If you guys bet the Red Sox today, hopefully they win. So there we go. Make me look good. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Good luck.